tomb of Qin Shi Huang. What lies inside China's sealed emperor's tomb? Settle yourself now. Let the weight of the day drift from your shoulders. Loosen the tension in your hands, in your jaw, in the slow rhythm of your breathing. Let your eyes grow heavy, but not yet closed. You will want to see the path we're about to take. This is not just a story. It's a quiet journey through shadow and stone, through whispers older than the walls around you. As you rest, tell me, where are you listening from tonight? I imagine you there, perhaps beneath the soft glow of a lamp, perhaps lying in the darkness with only this voice and the silence between my words. You are here now, inside the mist. The air is cool against your skin. Somewhere far away, a night bird calls, its voice slipping between the folds of the hills. Ahead, the ground rises into a dark mound. No banners mark it. No lights proclaim what lies beneath. Just the earth and the patient trees that have stood watch for centuries. You step forward, each footfall pressing gently into damp soil. The scent of rain on stone lingers, faint but distinct, as if the ground itself remembers a storm long past. The wind brushes past your cheek, light as a hand guiding you forward, carrying the low hum of unseen stones. Some say you can feel it if you stand still long enough, that subtle vibration, as if the very earth beneath you is holding its breath. It is here that China's first emperor rests, sealed in his hidden palace for over 2,000 years. They call him Qin Shi Huang, the man who bound the warring states into one empire, the man who dreamed of living forever. But tonight, you are not reading about him in a book or seeing him on a museum placard. Tonight, you're standing at the edge of his silence. The grass sways, its blades heavy with dew, brushing your ankles. Somewhere under this mound is a world of stone corridors, painted ceilings, rivers that may not be water, a dome that may not be the sky. Yet you are not afraid. You are calm here, the darkness folding gently around you like a blanket. It is a place of waiting, of patience so deep that time itself feels slower, each second stretching like a ripple across a still pond. Your mind begins to wander, as it does before sleep. You picture the ancient workers, their shadows flickering against torchlit walls as they carved and carried, shaping chambers that no sunlight would ever touch again. You imagine the rustle of silk robes as court advisors whisper to one another, the scrape of chisels against stone, the quiet sound of water, real or imagined, flowing somewhere deep below. And yet, there is a question that presses softly at the edge of your thoughts. Why? Why was all of this built only to vanish beneath earth and grass? Why was the story of this place folded away, hidden from view? You lean closer to the mound, though you do not move your feet. You can almost feel the weight of the centuries pressing down, layer upon layer, each one holding a fragment of the truth. The moonlight catches on the grass, turning each blade into a slender shard of silver. In that pale glow, the mound seems larger, older, almost breathing. Perhaps you close your eyes for a moment. In the darkness behind your eyelids, you see the tomb as it might have been on the day the emperor was laid to rest. The palace corridors lined with guards of clay, their faces different yet the same, all staring forward into endless duty. The painted dome above, mirroring the constellations as they were in the year 210 BCE. Beneath that dome, the emperor's coffin surrounded by treasures, offerings, and if the stories are true, rivers of mercury flowing through carved channels, glinting like liquid light in the torch's flame. But the night air brings you back. You open your eyes and see only the mound again, quiet, unbroken. You remember that no one has opened it, that even now the chamber lies untouched. Perhaps it is better this way. Perhaps some doors, once closed, should remain so until the world is ready. Your breath slows. The hum beneath your feet seems deeper now, not a sound exactly, but a presence. It is as if the stones themselves are remembering, holding their secrets close until someone listens long enough to hear. And here you are, listening still, in the soft darkness of this night. Above you, the stars drift. A slow wind moves through the grass, whispering over the earth's skin. You stand there, neither intruder nor conqueror, but simply a witness. In this place, the past feels near enough to touch. And in the stillness, you sense that the Emperor's story is not just about power or immortality or even death. It is about what we choose to keep hidden and what we leave behind for others to find. You take one slow step closer to the mound, the damp soil pressing softly under your heel. The grass parts soundlessly. The shadows here are deep but not unfriendly. Somewhere beyond them lies the door, not a door you can see, but one that has waited centuries for the right hands, the right moment, and still it remains closed. A cool breath of wind drifts up from the valley, carrying the scent of wet earth and something metallic, faint but distinct. You wonder if it is the mercury, seeping ever so slowly from the hidden rivers below. Or perhaps it's only the smell of old stone warmed by the day and cooled by the night. Either way, it is a reminder that the tomb is real, not just a story, not just a legend, but a presence sleeping beneath this hill. The night wraps around you like a cloak. Your shoulders are light now, your breathing steady. You could stay here for hours, feeling the weight of history pressing from beneath and the endless sky stretching above. The moment is balanced perfectly between earth and heaven, between the known and the unknown, and you standing here are part of that balance. Far away, you hear a faint echo, perhaps the call of another night bird, perhaps something else. It fades quickly, swallowed by the stillness. The grass sways again, and the hum beneath your feet seems almost like the slow heartbeat of the earth. As you turn slightly, the moonlight glances off the curve of the mound, and for a heartbeat, you imagine it as the curve of the Emperor's own crown buried deep below. Then the image is gone, and you're left only with the mound, the mist, and the silence. And in that silence, the question rises again, soft, patient, unhurried. Why was this place erased from memory? Why is it still waiting, sealed against the centuries? The night offers no answer, only the hum, the shadow, and the stone. And so you stand listening as the world around you grows quieter still, inviting you deeper into the story that has been waiting for over 2,000 years to be told. The mound is still before you, its shape a dark silhouette against the pale sweep of the night sky. You feel as if you have stepped into a place that has no clock, where time is measured only by the movement of clouds and the slow arc of stars. The air here carries a strange kind of weight, not heavy, but deep, like a held breath that has lasted for centuries. Somewhere beneath your feet lies a story carved into stone, painted on walls, sealed behind doors no one living has seen. And tonight, we begin to walk backward through time to find its beginning. 2,000 years ago, the land around you would have looked different. Hills would have been bare in places, stripped for timber to build scaffolds and walkways. Roads wide and beaten would have led in every direction toward the heart of this site. You might have heard the clatter of wooden carts laden with stone, the creak of leather harnesses, the dull thud of hammers. Imagine standing here, not in the stillness of midnight, but in the restless hum of creation, the air heavy with the dust of newly turned earth. The year was 246 BCE. Qin Shi Huang was not yet the emperor of all China. He was only 13 years old, a boy who had inherited the throne of the Qin state. But from the moment he wore the crown, the vision of his resting place began to take shape. Some say he started planning it before he could even rule in his own name, as if the shadow of his own mortality had been his earliest companion. Others whisper that his advisors had seen omens, that the stars themselves had marked him for a destiny so vast it could not be contained in the years of one life alone. The tomb was never meant to be a simple grave. It was an empire beneath the earth, a mirror of the one he intended to forge above. They say more than 700,000 labourers were summoned, men taken from every corner of the lands he would later unify. Skilled craftsmen worked alongside prisoners of war, all bound to the same endless task: to carve, to build, to create a palace that would never see the sun. You can almost hear them now, their voices carrying through the corridors as they worked by torchlight. Some were shaping soldiers from clay, giving each one a different face, as if each were alive. Others were pouring molten bronze into moulds for weapons that would never be wielded. Still others painted ceilings with constellations, so that the emperor could look up from his coffin and see the stars as they shone in the world above. In your mind you walk those halls. The air is warm, thick with the smell of resin from the torches, the tang of wet clay, the metallic bite of bronze. The walls are smooth under your fingertips, their carved designs deep and precise. You hear the shuffle of feet, the soft murmur of orders passed from master to apprentice, the slow trickle of water echoing from some distant chamber. The boy king became the emperor in 221 BCE, uniting the warring states under one rule. He brought a single script to a land of many writings, a standard weight and measure to a land of many trades. He built roads that tied the farthest provinces to the heart of his empire, and through it all the tomb grew larger, deeper, more intricate, its chambers multiplying like the streets of a hidden city. He feared death, or perhaps he feared the fading of his name more than the ending of his breath. He sent ships and envoys in search of the elixir of life, chasing legends of islands where immortals dwelt. Some never returned, others came back with only strange herbs, their promises unfulfilled. And so he turned more and more to his other kind of immortality, the one built from stone and silence, where his spirit could reign forever, untouched by the rot of the years. They say that in the deepest chamber he ordered rivers of mercury to be poured into carved channels, a shimmering map of the empire he ruled. Mountains rose from the floor in miniature, valleys dipped between them, and above, a ceiling painted with the heavens. The stars themselves were set in place with pearls and gems, each one a fragment of light captured forever in the darkness. But here, standing on the mound, you know none of this is certain. We have only the words of Sima Qian, the historian who wrote of these wonders more than a century after the emperor's death. He spoke of hidden mechanisms, crossbows set to fire at intruders, traps waiting for the first who dared to breach the walls. He spoke of craftsmen sealed within the tomb so that none could reveal its secrets. He spoke of the rivers, the dome, the treasure, the emperor himself lying in the heart of it all. And yet, the mound is silent, No door is visible, no stairway, no stone marker declaring the resting place of the first emperor. Only this quiet swell of earth and the slow, patient work of time, covering all that was once loud and bright with the soft, unbroken weight of soil. You take a deep breath and let it out slowly. The night air feels cooler now, brushing against your skin like the edge of a silk sleeve. Somewhere far away a fox cries, a single, sharp sound that cuts through the stillness before fading back into the dark. You imagine the same sound echoing here 2,000 years ago, the same moon casting light over the unfinished mound, the same shadows lying where they are tonight. And as you stand there, you realize this is where the first thread of the mystery is tied. We know the emperor was buried here. We know there is something beneath the mound, but no one alive has seen it. No camera has captured it. No explorer has stood inside the central chamber. It is a story half told, the second half locked away in the darkness below. Perhaps the mound itself is part of the plan, its silence a final command from the emperor, its secrecy a wall stronger than any built of stone. It waits, as if testing us, as if measuring how long we are willing to wonder before we choose to know. You feel the hum under your feet again, faint but steady. Maybe it is only your imagination, or maybe it is the sound of the earth remembering, holding the breath of an emperor who still lies in state, crowned and silent, in a palace without doors. The wind shifts, carrying with it a faint scent, not the sharpness of rain on stone now, but something older, richer, as if a memory has slipped free for a moment. You think of the workers, the years of labour, the lives given to this place, the final sealing of its gates. You think of the emperor's face, still and still watching, in a darkness no light has touched for more than 20 centuries, and slowly you understand. The mound is not just earth, it is a boundary between what is known and what is hidden, between the world we walk in and the one that lies beneath. The grass sways again, the stars drift overhead. You close your eyes and let the stillness settle deeper into you, carrying you further into the story, further into the shadows of an empire that has been waiting, silent, for someone to listen. The mound remains behind you now, but not forgotten. You walk slowly away, the grass brushing against your ankles, the air cooling further as the night deepens. The image of it stays in your mind, dark, patient, unyielding. And yet, as you leave, another scene begins to take shape in your thoughts, as if the earth itself is showing you what it once concealed from human eyes. For nearly 2,000 years after Qin Shi Huang was laid to rest, his tomb lay hidden under soil and silence. Dynasties rose and fell. Rivers changed course. Forests crept over fields. Cities were built and abandoned. The great mound was sometimes known, sometimes forgotten, sometimes spoken of in hushed tones as a place better left undisturbed. Centuries turned like the slow pages of a book, each one covering the last. But then, in the spring of 1974, the earth decided to reveal a sliver of its secret. The place was a small farming village near Xi'an in Shanxi province. It had been an ordinary year, fields of wheat rippling under the breeze, the steady rhythm of planting and harvest guiding the days. The land here was generous, but sometimes dry, and wells were precious. That March, a group of farmers gathered to dig a new well. The morning light was pale, the ground firm beneath their feet, their shovels cut into the earth, the sound sharp against the quiet of the open land. They dug deeper, speaking to one another in the easy tones of neighbours who had worked side by side for years. Then one of them struck something hard, not stone exactly, but something shaped, something that did not belong to the natural earth. Curious, they dug around it, and soon a face emerged from the soil. A face unlike any they had seen before, strong, calm, and made entirely of clay. At first, they didn't understand. It was just a fragment, a head without a body. But it was lifelike in its detail. The lines of the mouth, the curve of the cheek, the sweep of the hair tied in a soldier's knot. They set it aside and kept digging, and then another appeared, and another. By the end of the day, they had uncovered parts of several figures, all crafted with the same uncanny precision. Word spread quickly, reaching local officials, and soon the quiet fields were no longer so quiet. Teams of archaeologists arrived, their brushes and tools replacing the farmers' shovels. They moved slowly, carefully, peeling back the layers of soil as though lifting the corner of a great hidden painting. What they found was more than anyone could have imagined. Beneath the earth lay ranks upon ranks of life-size soldiers, each one unique. Faces that looked as though they had lived lives of their own, stern, weary, determined. Armor rendered in clay with every strap, knot, and plate detailed. Weapons of bronze that had not rusted despite the centuries. Horses, too, stood among them, their muscles caught mid-strain, their bridles perfectly formed. The soldiers were arranged in precise formations, as if ready to march at a moment's notice. Rows of archers, infantry, charioteers, all standing guard in eternal silence. It was not a tomb these farmers had stumbled upon directly, but a vast army buried to protect the tomb that still lay untouched beyond. You can imagine standing there in that moment, brushing the last soil from the face of a soldier who has not seen the light in over 2 millennia. The air would be warm from the sun above, but cool in the shadows of the excavation. Dust would rise from every movement, settling on your skin, on your clothes, around you. The quiet murmur of voices, archaeologists calling out measurements, others passing notes, some just standing in silence, awed by the sight before them. Days turned to weeks, weeks into months, and the excavation grew. Entire pits were uncovered, revealing thousands of figures. What astonished everyone was that no two faces were exactly the same. Each soldier had his own expression, his own posture, as though the craftsman had captured living men in clay. Some even bore faint traces of paint reds, blues, and greens that once made them even more lifelike, though centuries underground had faded most of it away. The news spread across China, then across the world. People travelled from far away to see this buried army. Yet for all the wonder it inspired, it also raised questions. How many soldiers were there in total? How many pits lay undiscovered? And most of all, if this was merely the outer guard, what lay inside the tomb they were built to protect? You close your eyes for a moment and picture the emperor himself, somewhere beyond the reach of this army, deep in the sealed heart of the mound. The soldiers stand ready, their weapons sharp, their gazes fixed on an unseen enemy. Perhaps they guard not only the emperor's body, but also the secrets buried with him, secrets that might change what we know of his reign or of the ancient world entirely. The archaeologists, careful and deliberate, mapped every soldier, every artifact, every fragment. They found traces of chariots, war drums, banners. In one pit they uncovered a command post, complete with officers, their uniforms more elaborate, their postures more commanding. Everything pointed to a level of planning and craftsmanship that was staggering in scale. And yet, even as the terracotta army was revealed, the central tomb remained untouched. Ground-penetrating surveys suggested there was a massive underground chamber beneath the mound, possibly multiple chambers. But the decision was made to leave them sealed. The reasons were both scientific and cultural. Our preservation technology, though advanced, might not be able to protect whatever fragile wonders lay inside from sudden exposure to air and light. And there was respect too, an understanding that disturbing the Emperor's rest carried its own risks, whether practical or spiritual. So the mound remained as it was. The army could be studied, restored, displayed to the public, but the Emperor himself would stay hidden, as he had been for over 2,000 years. And in that choice, the mystery only deepened. Imagine standing now at the edge of one of those excavated pits. The clay soldiers rise around you, silent and unmoving, yet somehow alive in their presence. You hear the faint sound of the wind sweeping across the plain, the soft murmur of visitors far above, and beneath it all that same quiet hum, the sense that the earth remembers more than it has told us. You look toward the mound in the distance, knowing that the army you stand among is only the first layer of the story. Beyond them lies the Emperor's sealed palace, the rivers of mercury, the painted dome. But whether we will ever see them, that remains uncertain. The sky begins to darken again in your mind's eye, the sun sinking low over the fields. The soldiers fade back into shadow, the earth slowly reclaiming what was once lost to it. And you are left with the image of that mound, patient and unbroken, holding its silence against the centuries, waiting for the day when the seal might finally be broken. The soldiers fade from view as you step back into the quiet night of the mound. Their clay faces linger in your memory, those patient eyes fixed forever toward the horizon. But now the darkness around you begins to fill with another vision. It is no longer the present you see. The mist shifts, and you find yourself drifting into a time before the mound was ever covered with grass. A time when the heart of the first Emperor's dream was still taking shape beneath the open sky. It begins with the sound of tools, the dull thud of picks against earth, the groan of wooden carts rolling over packed soil, the scrape of stone being shaped by calloused hands. The air is thick with dust and the smell of wet clay. You can hear voices too, hundreds of them at first, then thousands, the sound rising and falling like the tide. 700,000 souls. That is the number the ancient historian Sima Qian gave us. They came from every part of the empire, skilled artisans, labourers, soldiers, and prisoners of war. Some came willingly, promised food, pay, or exemption from other duties. Others came in chains, their lives claimed by the vast appetite of this project, and all of them worked under the shadow of the Emperor's will. The site sprawls across the land, a hive of movement and purpose. Wooden scaffolds rise high into the air, ladders clinging to the sides of deep pits. The clatter of chisels and hammers echoes against the earth walls. Teams of men drag massive stones into place, each block cut to fit so precisely that not even the edge of a blade can slip between them. In another corner, the slow rhythm of pounding clay takes shape limbs, torsos, faces moulded by practiced hands. Some of these workers will never see daylight again once their task is done. They know this. The tomb is a secret, and the Emperor's word is law. What they build is not just a resting place, it is a fortress for the afterlife, a kingdom beneath the ground. You walk through the vision, your steps silent as you pass between lines of workers. The scale is staggering. Corridors wide enough for chariots, chambers large enough to hold entire banquets, halls lined with carved pillars that seem to stretch forever into the shadows. You can see artisans painting walls with scenes of mountains and rivers, their pigments ground from minerals carried here from distant provinces. Others set inlays of jade, their green surfaces catching the flicker of torchlight like drops of frozen water. And then there is the heart of the project, the great burial chamber itself. You cannot see the emperor here. He's still alive in this time, ruling from his palace above, but the chamber is being prepared for him. The floor is shaped like the empire he has built, every mountain and valley represented in miniature. In the low channels carved through this map, a silvery liquid flows. At first you think it must be water, catching the firelight in restless gleams. But then you realize it moves differently, heavier, thicker. It is mercury, poured by the barrel from great clay jars, gliding through the channels to become the rivers and seas of this underground world. Above, the ceiling is painted with the constellations. Stars shimmer where artisans have set pearls into the plaster. The moon is a disk of polished jade, the sun a glowing orb of gold. It is said the emperor ordered this so he could look upon the heavens even in death, so he could rule both the earth beneath his feet and the sky above his head. The air here is different, cool and sharp, with a faint metallic tang that prickles at the back of your throat. Torches burn low, their light reflecting off the mercury in strange shifting patterns. It feels almost like standing between two worlds, the ceiling above like the open night sky, the rivers below whispering softly as they slide past the miniature shores. You move further through the vision. In one chamber, weapons are being prepared, crossbows of bronze and wood, swords that glint with the sheen of newly polished steel. They will never be wielded in battle, yet each is forged perfection. Some will be set in the hands of the clay soldiers, others will be stored in racks near the emperor's chamber, ready to defend him against any who might dare to enter uninvited. It is whispered among the workers that there are traps, hidden mechanisms waiting for the careless or the greedy. A step on the wrong stone might trigger a hail of arrows. A wall might shift suddenly, sealing a passage forever. Whether these tales are truth, or only the fears of those who toil here, no one can say. But the thought of them lingers, heavy and unseen, like the weight of a blade hanging just above the heart. Outside the main chamber, treasures pile up jade ornaments, gold vessels, bronze bells, fine silks. These are gifts for the emperor's journey beyond life, offerings that speak of his wealth, his power, his belief that even in death he will be emperor still. The work continues for decades. Seasons pass, the air shifting from the heat of summer to the bite of winter and back again. Generations of workers live and die under the shadow of this construction. Some are buried here when they fall, their bodies hidden in unmarked corners, swallowed by the very earth they have shaped. Others vanish when their task is complete, never to return to their homes. And then, one year, the work slows. The air grows heavier. Rumors pass in low voices. The emperor's health is failing. Envoys are still being sent in search of the elixir of life, but no one believes it will be found in time. The chamber is prepared. The doors are ready to be sealed. When Qin Shi Huang dies in 210 BCE, the burial is swift and secretive. The emperor is placed in his coffin and carried deep into the heart of the chamber. Rituals are performed, offerings made. The doors are closed one by one, each sealing him further away from the living world. Sima Qian's writings say that the craftsmen who knew the tomb secrets were locked inside, their lives ending where their work had begun. Whether out of loyalty or fear, they took the truth with them into the dark. Above, the mound was raised higher, covering every sign of the entrances. Grass grew, seasons turned, and the tomb became a part of the landscape, its secrets locked away in silence. The vision fades now, and you're once again in the cool stillness of the present night. The mound stands before you, its shape a shadow against the stars. The air is the same, the silence just as deep, but now you see it differently. You know the rivers that may still flow beneath. You know the stars that may still shine in darkness. You know the traps that may still wait, undisturbed for 2,000 years. And as you breathe slowly, the hum beneath your feet returns, steady, patient, timeless. You close your eyes and listen, as if the earth might whisper one more fragment of its story before the night ends. The night deepens, and the mound before you seems almost to lean closer, as if it knows you now carry more of its story than when you first arrived. You stand there for a long moment, feeling the weight of the centuries pressing down from beneath the earth, when another vision begins to stir. This time, not from the age of emperors, but from the modern day, when human hands once again brushed against the edges of this forbidden place. It is the late 20th century, decades after the farmers' well digging uncovered the terracotta army. The excavation pits are now known to the world, visited by travellers from across continents. But for the archaeologist working here, the soldiers are not the end of the mystery. They are the outermost veil. Beyond them lies the mound itself, its grassy slopes untouched. Imagine standing in the shadow of that mound on a cool morning, the early mist still coiling low over the ground. A team of scientists waits nearby, their equipment arranged in careful order. Ground-penetrating radar units, measuring tapes, surveying tools. They are not here to dig, not yet. They are here to listen to the earth, to see what lies hidden without disturbing the soil. The radar begins to hum. Sweeps of sound sink into the mound, bouncing back whispers from the depths. The results appear slowly on their screens, outlines, shapes, voids that should not be there if the earth were untouched. They see patterns, straight lines where nature rarely makes them, vast open spaces where soil should be solid. The readings confirm what legend and history have told for centuries. The heart of the tomb is vast, larger than many palaces above the ground. But the radar cannot show everything. It cannot reveal the glint of gold, the shimmer of mercury, the faces of those who stand guard in darkness. Still, it gives them just enough to imagine. They trace the likely paths of corridors, the positions of chambers. They suspect that the main burial hall lies at the very center, perhaps even deeper than Sima Qian's writings suggest. And then there is the strange discovery mercury. The scientists collect soil samples from around the mound, testing them for trace elements. To their surprise, the mercury levels are far higher than anything natural. It is a finding that seems to echo the old tales of the rivers and seas within the tomb. Yet how could this be true after more than 2,000 years? Mercury does not easily evaporate, but for it to still remain, and in such amounts suggests either great quantities were used or that the tomb structure has preserved it almost perfectly. The implications are dangerous. Mercury is toxic. If the tomb were opened carelessly, the air inside might be deadly before one even glimpsed the treasures within. This alone becomes one of the many reasons to leave it sealed. Standing at the edge of the mound, the archaeologists face a decision that is not theirs alone to make. China's cultural authorities must weigh the desire for discovery against the responsibility to preserve. What if opening the tomb destroys its contents? What if ancient pigments, fabrics, or wooden artifacts crumble to dust the moment they touch open air? The tragedy of losing the emperor's secrets forever would be greater than the pain of waiting. So the decision is made. The tomb will remain closed. The soldiers outside can be studied, conserved, and displayed. The mound, however, will be watched, surveyed, and respected, its silence unbroken. You can feel the mixture of emotions in the scientists as they walk away that day. There is reverence, yes, but also a quiet ache, because they have stood closer than almost anyone to the edge of this ancient world, and they must turn back without stepping inside. Yet the mystery only grows. Over the years, more technology is applied to study the mound from the outside. Thermal imaging detects differences in temperature that hint at hollow spaces. Magnetic surveys suggest areas where metal objects might lie. Each scan, each reading, is like catching a fragment of a dream enough to make you certain it is real, but never enough to see it whole. Meanwhile, the terracotta army stands in their silent formations, each one facing east toward the entrance of the tomb. Visitors walk among them, their footsteps echoing softly in the great excavation halls. The soldiers' clay eyes seem to follow, watchful and unblinking. Every detail of their armor, every fold of their tunics, every strand of hair tied into their top knots, speaks of a craftsmanship that was never meant to be rushed. Some of these soldiers hold real weapons, preserved by a chromium coating that has astonished modern scientists. Such technology, they say, was not seen again until more than 2,000 years later. How did the craftsmen of the Qin dynasty achieve it? Was it discovery of their own, or knowledge passed down from an even older source now lost to time? The question lingers, tying itself to the larger mystery of the tomb. If such skill was possible, then what else might the sealed chambers reveal? One evening, as the last visitors leave the site and the sun begins to set over the plain, you stand once again where you began, at the base of the mound. The grass glows gold in the fading light, and the shadows stretch long toward the horizon. The terracotta army is behind you now, out of sight but still present in your thoughts. Ahead is only the mound, and the knowledge that inside the emperor lies in the palace he built for himself, untouched by all that has come and gone in the world above. You breathe deeply, letting the cool air fill your lungs, letting your body grow heavy with stillness. The wind moves gently over the grass, and for a moment you imagine it as the breath of the tomb itself, a slow exhale after centuries of silence. You think of the scientists, the farmers, the craftsmen, the soldiers, and the emperor, all bound together by this one place. Night settles, and the stars begin to appear. Somewhere up there, the same constellations painted on the tomb ceiling still shine in their living form. Somewhere below, their painted twins may still glow faintly in the dark, untouched since the day the gates were sealed. You close your eyes, not because you wish to sleep, but because in the darkness behind them you can almost see both worlds at once. The one above, breathing under the open sky, and the one below, holding its breath in endless night. And you realize that perhaps the truest connection between them is not in opening the tomb, but in listening to its silence and understanding the patience of the stones. You stand at the base of the mound once more, your body quiet, your breathing slow. The night air settles over your skin like a cool cloth, and the ground beneath your feet feels steady, almost warm, as though it remembers the touch of countless others who have stood here before you. The terracotta army lies behind you now, hidden in their excavated pits, but their presence is like a faint echo in your chest, silent guardians watching from a distance. Ahead, the mound rises like a sleeping giant. Its slopes are soft with grass, each blade swaying gently in the breeze. There are no signs, no markers, no doors, just this hill, round and steady under the stars. Somewhere deep beneath it lies a chamber that no living soul has entered since the year 210 BCE. Somewhere below is the still body of Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor, surrounded by everything he believed he would need to rule in the afterlife. You take a step closer. The soil under your shoes compresses softly. The scent of earth is rich here, mingled with a faint sharpness. Perhaps only the cool breath of the night, but it stirs something in you, a reminder of the Mercury rivers described in the old records. In your mind, you can almost feel the air inside the sealed chamber, heavy, untouched, older than any living memory. It has been waiting in darkness for over 2 millennia, locked away behind walls and gates, sealed so completely that no sound or light has entered since the day it was closed. What would it be like to break that seal? What would the first breath feel like inside such a place? Would it be thick with the scent of cedar and lacquer, or sharp and metallic from the mercury? Would it be utterly still, or would the trapped air rush past like a sigh after centuries of holding back? You pause and listen. The mound is silent, but its silence is not empty. It is full, like a deep pool where every sound is absorbed and held. There's a hum here, so faint you cannot tell if it is a sound, or simply something your body feels through the soles of your feet. It is the hum of time itself, the slow shifting of soil over stone, the patient heartbeat of an emperor's dream. Why, you wonder, has it been left sealed for so long? The official reasons are practical, scientific, respectful. The artifacts inside are likely fragile, exposed to air. They could decay instantly, vanishing into dust. Modern conservation methods, though advanced, may not be enough to preserve them in their original state. And then there is the danger: mercury vapors, structural collapse, the possibility that opening the tomb would destroy it forever. But there is another reason, quieter and harder to name. It is the weight of the unknown. So long as the tomb remains sealed, it is pure mystery, perfect, untouched, inviolate. To open it would be to change it forever, to replace wonder with fact. And perhaps some part of us does not want that. You think of all the people across centuries who have stood here, just as you do now. Farmers walking home at dusk, their shadows long in the setting sun. Soldiers of later dynasties, keeping watch without knowing what they guarded. Travellers pausing to rest in the shade of the hill. Each one must have felt it, the subtle pull of something vast and unseen, the question that rises in the mind and refuses to leave. What lies beneath? The grass moves again, a slow ripple across the slope, and for a moment you picture the mound as a vast sleeping form, the curves of its surface like shoulders and a back. You imagine it shifting slightly, not from wind, but from some ancient stir deep below. The image is gone as quickly as it came, yet it leaves you with the feeling that the tomb is not entirely still, that it is, in its own way, alive. The stars above are sharp tonight, their light cold and distant. You recall the ancient ceiling inside the chamber, painted with constellations. Somewhere down there, those stars may still shine in pigment and pearl, looking exactly as they did when the tomb was sealed. Above, the sky moves. Below, time holds still. Your eyes trace the curve of the mound again, following its lines until they meet the shadowed ground. There are no paths here, no signs of digging, no hint of an entrance. It is as if the earth has erased every trace of how one might enter, sealing not only the doors but the very memory of their existence. You close your eyes, and the darkness behind them seems to carry you downward. You imagine passing through layers of earth, past the roots of trees, past stones that have lain here since before the tomb was built. You descend further, into the cool, silent spaces where corridors stretch into the dark. The walls are smooth under your fingertips, the air still, the faint gleam of lacquer catching what little light you carry in your mind's eye. You turn a corner and see it, the great door to the burial chamber. It is massive, made of wood bound with bronze, its surface carved with patterns that seem to shift as you look at them. You stand before it, feeling the presence of the Emperor beyond, but you do not push it open. Even in imagination, there is a sense that it is not your place to cross that threshold. The vision fades, and you are standing on the grass once more. The wind has grown softer, the night deeper. The mound looms quiet and steady, a part of the landscape and yet apart from it, as though belonging to another world entirely. You take a slow breath, filling your lungs with the cool air, letting your body grow heavier, more grounded. There is comfort in the stillness, in the knowledge that some things do not rush to reveal themselves. The tomb is patient. It will wait as long as it must. And you, standing here, find yourself caught between wanting to know and wanting it to remain forever a mystery. Perhaps the truth is that both desires are part of the same longing, the human wish to touch the past and the equally human wish to let it remain untouched. The hum beneath your feet lingers as you turn to leave. It follows you, not in sound but in feeling, a reminder that the mound is still there, still keeping its vigil. You walk away slowly, your steps measured, as though not to disturb the ground's long slumber. When you glance back, the mound is just a shadow now, its edges blurred by distance. But in your mind, it is vivid green in summer, white in winter, silver under the moon. You carry it with you, knowing it will return to you in dreams, whispering of rivers that shine in darkness, of stars painted on ceilings no one has seen in living memory, of a king who built an empire beneath the earth and has ruled it in silence ever since. The mound lingers in your thoughts long after you step away from it. You feel its presence behind you, even when you can no longer see it. The stillness you felt there stays with you like the echo of a dream, and yet now another feeling begins to weave its way in curiosity that no longer rests in peace, but begins to stir as though the questions themselves are awake and walking beside you. The official story is clear enough, repeated in books, carved into museum plaques, spoken by guides in careful tones. Qin Shi Huang built his vast tomb to mirror his empire, filling it with treasures, soldiers, and rivers of mercury. It was sealed upon his death in 210 BCE and has remained untouched ever since. But the more you listen to the whispers of historians, archaeologists, and locals, the more you notice that there are cracks in the story, small fractures through which a different light seeps in. The first anomaly lies in the records themselves. We know much of what we think we know because of Sima Qian, the grand historian of the Han dynasty, who wrote of the tomb over a century after the emperor's death. His account is vivid. The celestial dome above, the mercury rivers below, the traps and treasures in between. And yet, how could he have known the details so precisely? If the tomb was sealed and those who built it were never allowed to leave, who could have described what was inside? Some scholars believe Sima Qian's account was built from rumor and imperial propaganda, a story shaped as much by imagination as by fact. Others think fragments of truth came from the few who might have escaped, or from secret records kept in the imperial archives. But there is no proof. We are left with the uneasy knowledge that our richest source may also be the least certain. Then there are the traces that do not match the record at all. The mercury in the soil around the mound, for example, its presence seems to confirm Sima Qian's tale. Yet the readings are not evenly distributed. Some areas show far higher concentrations than others, suggesting either that the mercury rivers were not laid out exactly as described, or that time and underground currents have moved them in ways no one anticipated. There are also oddities in the mound shape and structure. From the surface it seems a simple rounded hill, but modern surveys have revealed that its base extends in ways the eye cannot see, wider, deeper, almost as if the mound is only the visible crown of something far larger hidden below. Some suggest that earlier structures may lie beneath it, built long before Qin Shi Huang's time and later incorporated into his tomb. If true, that would mean the first emperor's resting place is not entirely his own, but a palimpsest of ages, one layer built upon another. Artifacts found in the surrounding area add more threads to the tangle. Among the weapons of the terracotta army are items forged with an advanced chromium treatment to prevent rust, a method unknown anywhere else in the world until the 20th century. Was it a lost invention of the Qin craftsmen, or knowledge preserved from an even earlier, forgotten civilization? If they mastered such techniques, what else might lie within the sealed chamber technologies or designs beyond what history says they should have known? Even the army itself raises questions. Thousands of soldiers have been unearthed, yet the arrangement of the pits and the presence of command posts suggest that many more might still lie undiscovered. If these guards are meant to defend the tomb in the afterlife, why does their number and placement seem to follow the logic of a real-world military defense? Was the layout ceremonial, or was it designed with the precision of someone expecting an actual siege? And then there are the whispers stories passed quietly from mouth to ear in the villages nearby. Some claim there are tunnels leading into the mound from far away, their entrances collapsed or hidden over time. Others speak of strange lights seen on the slopes during certain nights of the year, or of animals that avoid the mound's shadow entirely. Such tales are dismissed by science, but folklore often clings to truths in ways that defy measurement. As you walk, you think about these contradictions. They are like small currents beneath the surface of still water, subtle, but enough to change its flow. If Sima Qian's account is partly myth, then the true contents of the tomb could be far different from what we imagine. If the mound hides older structures, then the story stretches back before the first emperor's reign. If the artifacts already found hint at lost technologies, then perhaps the past is not as we have been told. The air around you feels heavier now, not from the night, but from the weight of possibility. You imagine standing at the edge of the sealed chamber, torch in hand, the air thick with age. You see walls covered in carvings no historian has described, objects whose purpose is unknown even to the most learned eyes, perhaps even records, maps, tablets, scrolls, telling of times before the Qin, before the dynasties, before the history we have written down. The thought lingers, and with it comes another. If such things exist, why would they be hidden? Why would they be sealed away, their knowledge buried for centuries? Was it to protect them from destruction, or to protect the world from them? You pause, feeling the ground beneath your feet. The hum is still there, low and steady, as if the mound itself is aware of your thoughts. The breeze moves across the grass, and you think again of the trap Sima Qian described, the crossbows set to fire at intruders, the mechanisms that might still wait in perfect silence for the first disturbance. Perhaps these are only symbolic, or perhaps they are real, and their purpose was not merely to guard treasures, but to guard truths. Above, the stars have shifted, their positions changed since the Emperor's time, yet somewhere below, the painted dome may still hold them in place, frozen in the sky of 2,000 years ago. The two versions of the heavens, one alive, one locked in paint, feel like a reflection of the mound itself, one world moving, one world held still. As you breathe in the cool night air, the contradictions settle around you like a second skin. You are no longer content with the simple version of the story. You can feel that there is more threads pulling at the edges, waiting for someone to follow them down into the dark. But for now, you stand on the grass, the night quiet around you, and the mound holding its silence as if it knows that once its truths are spoken, they can never be taken back. You remain in the quiet, your thoughts turning like slow wheels. The contradictions from the mound story still echo in your mind, but now another voice begins to speak, a calmer, measured voice. It belongs to the scholars, the archaeologists, the historians who have spent their lives sifting fact from rumour. If the earlier whispers hinted at strange lights and hidden tunnels, this voice speaks with charts, soil samples, and timelines. It is the voice of the orthodox explanation, the official narrative held together by the threads of research and restraint. They begin with the most practical truth. The tomb is sealed because opening it could destroy it. This is not speculation. It is the lesson learned from countless sites around the world. Organic materials, silks, wood, pigments can survive for thousands of years in the still, oxygen-poor darkness of a tomb. The moment they are exposed to the air, the process of decay begins, sometimes within minutes. Paint can fade or vanish before a camera can capture it. Cloth can crumble to dust at the touch of a fingertip. The terracotta army itself is their prime example. When the first soldiers were unearthed, they still bore the bright colours they had been painted with in the 3rd century BCE reds, blues, greens. But within hours the paint began to flake and peel, vanishing almost entirely within days. Modern conservators have since developed methods to slow that destruction, but not yet to prevent it completely. If the painted walls or wooden structures inside the tomb are exposed too soon, the damage could be irreversible. There is also the matter of safety. Soil tests around the mound reveal mercury levels dozens of times higher than normal. If the old stories of mercury rivers are true, the air inside could be saturated with toxic vapours. Opening the tomb without the right equipment could be dangerous for the people entering, and any disturbance to the chamber's balance could cause those vapours to escape into the surrounding environment. In this sense, the tomb is not just a cultural treasure, it is a sealed vault containing substances that could harm the living. The scholars also point to the ethical weight of the decision. In Chinese tradition, Disturbing a grave, especially one as grand as this, is not undertaken lightly. It is not only about respect for the dead, but about the harmony between the living and the spirits. For many, the emperor's resting place is not a problem to be solved, but a trust to be kept. Opening it would not just be a scientific act, but a spiritual one, carrying consequences that cannot be measured in data alone. And then there is the matter of politics and legacy. Qin Shi Huang is not just a historical figure, he is a symbol. He unified China, built the first version of the Great Wall, standardized weights, measures and writing. His rule was harsh, but his impact on history is undeniable. The tomb is the last untouched monument of his reign. To open it is to risk changing the way he is remembered, for better or worse. What if the chamber reveals something that diminishes his legend, or something that challenges the official history altogether? These are the reasons the scholars give when asked why the tomb remains sealed. They speak with patience, as though explaining to a curious child why a fragile vase must not be handled, and their caution is not without merit. Many of them have walked the pits of the terracotta army, brushed the dust from ancient armor, and seen firsthand how easily time can be undone. But their reasoning is not all about preservation. Some argue that our tools simply are not ready yet. Archaeology, they say, is not a race, it is a relay. One generation preserves the site for the next, knowing that the next will have better technology to explore it without damage. Already, advancements in imaging and scanning allow us to see into the mound without touching it. In another few decades, perhaps we will have methods to open the tomb without letting a single breath of outside air disturb its contents. Until then, the mound must wait. The soldiers outside will stand their silent watch. The mercury rivers, if they exist, will continue their slow shimmer in the dark. The emperor will remain as he has for 2,000 years, untouched, unseen, yet never forgotten. As you listen to the scholar's words in your mind, you begin to see the logic in them. There is a certain beauty in their patience, a humility before the vastness of time. They remind you that the tomb has already waited longer than any single human life. It can wait a little longer still, and yet, even as you nod to their reasoning, a quiet restlessness stirs within you. The scholars speak with authority, but they do not know everything. Their explanations answer the surface of the question, but the deeper mystery, the why of it all, still remains. They can explain why we do not open the tomb, but not why it was built in such a way, or what truths lie within that are worth guarding for eternity. You look back toward the mound in your mind, and it seems to regard you in return. The grass sways in the wind, the stars hang cold above, and the hum beneath the earth continues slow and steady. The scholars have told you why the tomb is closed, but the silence itself still asks you to imagine what it is keeping from the world. You let their reasoning settle into you like a slow tide. It soothes some of the urgency in your curiosity, but it does not wash it away entirely. After all, there is another voice still waiting to speak, the voice of those who do not accept the official account, who look at the same mound and see not only a treasure to be preserved, but a door to be opened, and you know that voice is coming. You can feel it approaching, like the first stirrings of wind before a distant storm, not loud yet, but certain. The scholar's calm has set the stage. The questions that remain will invite the alternative visions, the theories that reach beyond what is accepted, into the shadows where imagination and speculation walk together. For now, you breathe in the quiet, letting the scholars' careful reasoning join the other pieces of the story in your mind. The mound remains still, the soldiers remain silent, and somewhere below the emperor waits, in a darkness deeper than any night above. The night around the mound is still, but the air feels different now, charged, as though the wind itself is holding its breath. The voices of the scholars, calm and measured, fade into the background, and another current begins to flow through your mind. It is less cautious, less tethered to the boundaries of what is accepted. This is the voice of the alternative theories, the whispers that slip between the lines of official history. They do not always agree with one another, but they share a single trait. They do not believe the mound holds only what the textbooks claim. One such theory begins long before the first emperor was born. Some believe the hill beneath which Qin Shi Huang lies was already a sacred site, a place marked by the ancients for reasons lost to time. The emperor, they say, did not choose this spot at random. He claimed it by force, building his tomb upon something older, a temple, a fortress, or perhaps another tomb from a civilization long vanished. If that is true, the central chamber may hold not only his remains, but relics from a people whose names have been erased. Others push the theory further. They point to the precision of the terracotta army's weapons and the chromium-treated blades that resist rust even now, and they ask, how could technology like this appear in the 3rd century BCE, only to vanish for 2,000 years? Some believe it was knowledge passed down from a lost golden age, an advanced civilization that existed long before recorded history, destroyed by catastrophe, remembered only in scattered myths. The emperor, they suggest, may have inherited fragments of this knowledge, and his tomb could be a vault preserving more of it. There are those who believe the Mercury rivers are more than symbolic maps. Mercury was associated with immortality in ancient China, but it also has strange properties. It reflects light, it flows like water, and it can preserve objects from decay if kept sealed. What if the rivers are part of a preservation system, designed to keep the contents of the tomb untouched for millennia? Perhaps the streams of Mercury are more than decoration. They could be barriers, encircling chambers that contain fragile materials or machines still unknown to us. The most ambitious theories speak of the tomb as something more than a burial site. They imagine it as a kind of machine and engine for the afterlife, designed to project the emperor's spirit into eternity. In this vision, the rivers of Mercury might act as conduits, carrying energy through the underground map of his empire. The stars on the painted dome might align with constellations in a way that opens a celestial path. It sounds like myth, and yet myths often wrap themselves around truths we've not yet understood. Some even look to the sky for answers. They note that the mound's alignment with surrounding features is precise, perhaps too precise to be coincidence. Could it be that the tomb was designed according to astronomical principles, its hidden passages pointing to certain stars or solstices? If so, why? Was it for ceremony, or was it part of something greater, something we have forgotten how to read? Not all of these ideas are wild speculation. The thought that Qin Shi Huang might have reused an older sacred site is not unprecedented. Many rulers throughout history have done the same, building their monuments atop places already charged with cultural or spiritual significance. If this is true, then beneath the mound might lie layers of history, the Qin tomb above, and something older, stranger, and perhaps more mysterious below. But others push even further into the uncharted. There are those who say the emperor's obsession with immortality was not just a personal fear of death, but the continuation of a mission far older than himself. They suggest that the tomb may contain records etched in stone, carved into metal, or written on preserved scrolls, telling of times when the world was different, when great cities stood where oceans now lie, when people knew the secrets of life and death. If such records exist, they could change everything we believe about human history. Of course, the scholars scoff at this. They remind us there is no evidence, only conjecture. But evidence cannot be gathered if the tomb remains sealed, and so the alternative theories remain in the shadows, growing more elaborate with each passing year. You stand there, imagining what it would feel like to be the first to descend into the tomb's main hall. The torchlight would reveal walls lined with carvings, perhaps not of the Qin Empire at all, but of mountains and rivers no longer in existence, creatures not known to science, constellations unfamiliar to our sky. The air would be thick, metallic, and cold. In the center would rest the emperor's coffin, massive, ornate, and perhaps not empty. One theory suggests it might not hold only the emperor's remains. What if it also holds objects he believed would grant him life beyond death? Not just symbolic items, but devices of some kind, strange artifacts taken from places lost to history. Perhaps they were misunderstood even in his time, treated as magical relics when they were something far more complex. And then there are the darker whispers that the tomb may have been sealed not just to protect its treasures, but to contain something dangerous. The Mercury rivers in this view are less a preservation method and more a barrier, meant to keep whatever lies within from leaving. Whether that danger is spiritual, toxic, or something we do not yet have words for, the idea lingers in the mind like a shadow in the corner of a room. The breeze stirs the grass, and the mound seems to lean into the darkness. You can almost imagine that it is listening, aware of the theories spun about it in the world above. Perhaps it is amused. Perhaps it is simply waiting, knowing that one day someone will come who dares to find out which, if any, of these ideas are true. You feel the pull of the unknown like a thread tugging at your chest. The scholar's patience and the alternative dreamer's urgency pull in opposite directions, yet both lead here to the same silent hill under the same stars. Whether the tomb holds only what the historians believe, or more than anyone dares to imagine, it remains the same, closed, watching, eternal. The hum beneath your feet seems louder now, though you know it is only your heartbeat in the stillness. You take a slow breath, letting the night air fill you, and you realize that the truth, whatever it is, may be more than one person or one lifetime can hold. For now, the mound sleeps, but somewhere beneath the soil, the rivers may still glimmer, the stars may still shine on painted plaster, and the emperor may still wait. Not just for discovery, but for the moment when the world is ready to hear what he has to say. The air around the mound seems softer now, as if the night has drawn closer to listen. The theories, both cautious and wild, still swirl in your thoughts, but here, standing in the hush, you begin to hear another voice entirely. It is older than the scholars, older even than the emperor's stone soldiers. It speaks in fragments, in the way a stream speaks, changing its tone as it moves over rock and root. It is the voice of memory, not written in ink but carried in stories. In the villages that lie within sight of this hill, people have always told tales about it. Some say they grew up with them, passed down by grandparents who had heard them in their own childhoods. The stories change from house to house, but they share a shape, like different branches springing from the same ancient tree. One tale says the mound was built not to guard the emperor's treasures, but to hold back a curse. They speak of a shadow that once roamed the land, something so dangerous it could not be killed, only locked away. The emperor, in this telling, was both conqueror and jailer. He built his underground palace not as a home for himself, but as a prison for the shadow, sealing it with rivers of mercury so it could never cross into the world again. Another story is gentler, but no less strange. In this one, the mound is a sleeping dragon, curled beneath the earth. Its scales are the stones of the tomb's walls, its blood the mercury rivers, its breath the wind that sweeps across the grass. The emperor, the story says, made a pact with the dragon his life for the dragon's rest. When the dragon wakes, the emperor will walk again, and the world will be remade. Children hear these tales and pass them on without questioning. They play in the fields within sight of the mound, daring one another to run closer and touch its base. Some claim they have felt the ground hum beneath their feet. Others say they have heard faint sounds, drums or voices from somewhere deep below. Adults smile at these claims but do not encourage them. Some superstitions are not meant to be tested. There is also a story of the Star Palace whispered among the older generation. It speaks of an underground hall where the ceiling holds every star in the sky, each one a gem or pearl that glows with its own light. The rivers of mercury flow around the hall, their surfaces reflecting the stars until the room seems to have no walls or floor, only an endless night through which the emperor's spirit can travel. Some versions of the tale say that when the right constellation appears in the heavens above, a hidden door will open and the Star Palace will be revealed again. Other legends are smaller, but no less haunting. One says that during certain storms, the rainwater runs off the mound with a silvery sheen, staining the soil around it. Another claims that anyone who spends a night at the mound's base will dream of places they have never been, strange cities, oceans filled with lights, mountains of glass. Waking from these dreams, the dreamer always feels a pull to return to the mound, though they cannot say why. The villagers do not all agree on the meaning of these tales. Some say they are warnings, others believe they are blessings. But even those who dismiss the stories as mere superstition often avoid the mound at night. They say it is not out of fear, but out of respect, like passing a closed door in an old house and choosing not to open it, even when you have the key. You think of how these stories have survived while empires have risen and fallen, while the language has shifted and the land has changed. The scholars work from texts, artifacts and measurements. The storytellers work from something less tangible, a sense that the mound is not just an object in the landscape but a living part of it. In this way, the folklore and the history seem to reflect each other. The historical records speak of rivers of mercury, a star-painted ceiling, and a sealed chamber. The folklore speaks of dragons, shadows, and star palaces. Different languages, perhaps, but telling of the same shapes in the dark. You imagine the emperor himself hearing such stories in his youth, long before the mound was raised. Perhaps he grew up on tales of the dragon or the Star Palace. Perhaps he built his tomb not only to display his power, but to join himself to the myth, to ensure his name would be spoken in the same breath as these timeless wonders. The night wind moves over the grass, and you hear the sound it makes soft, almost like whispering. It could be the wind alone, or it could be something else. The villagers say the mound speaks when the world is quiet enough to listen, but its words are not in any language they know. You stand still, letting the sound wash over you, and for a moment you feel as though the mound is telling you one of its own stories, older than any human memory. It is a strange comfort, this blend of fact and legend. The scholars' accounts and the villagers' tales seem to circle the same mystery, never touching but never far apart. Between them, a space opens wide enough for wonder, deep enough to hold the possibility that the truth may be greater than either side imagines. You realize that even if the mound were open tomorrow, even if the chamber were revealed and every object inside catalogued and studied, the stories would not disappear. They would continue to be told, shaped by the new knowledge but never erased. For the mound is more than the sum of its contents. It is a place where the past touches the present, where the known and the imagined meet under the same moonlight. The stars above are steady now, each one bright against the darkness. Somewhere below, their painted reflections may still glow on a ceiling no human eyes have seen in over 2,000 years. You think of the villagers who call that place the Star Palace, and you feel a pull to believe them, not because the legend is proven, but because it carries a truth of its own, that the mound is a door and the stars are its lock. You breathe slowly, letting the night air fill your lungs, letting the stories settle into you like roots. You may never know which are fact and which are dream, but you understand now that both are needed to hold the mystery. And in that understanding, the mound seems to stand a little taller, as if pleased that you have listened to all its voices. The mound is quiet, but the stories it carries ripple outward, reaching far beyond the villages that have lived in its shadow. As you stand there, letting the wind brush past, your thoughts drift to other places, other times places where similar whispers have taken root in the soil, where the ground holds memories of worlds long gone. You begin to see the first emperor's tomb not as a solitary mystery, but as one strand in a vast tangled web of ancient tales. Across the earth, different cultures speak of ages before the one we know, times when the world was whole in ways it no longer is. There are the flood stories, for instance, scattered like seeds across continents, the great deluge that swallowed cities, the survivors who climbed to high ground or floated on rafts until the waters receded. In China's own ancient lore, there is the tale of Gun and Yu taming the Great Flood, an event so immense that it reshaped the land and the order of the heavens. In Mesopotamia, there is Utnapishtim's Ark. In the Hebrew tradition, Noah's. In each, the world is washed clean, and a new order rises from the ruins. The mound seems to listen as you recall these stories, its slopes silver in the starlight. Some researchers have noticed patterns in these myths, suggesting they might be echoes of real events, ancient catastrophes so profound they imprinted themselves on human memory. If that is true, then the first emperor's tomb may not just be about one man's power or fear of death. It could be part of a tradition of preserving knowledge and treasures from one age into the next, in case the world ever needed to be remade. There is the possibility, voiced only in certain corners, that Qin Shi Huang's obsession with immortality was not merely about personal survival. Perhaps he feared that another catastrophe would come, and his tomb was meant as a kind of ark, a sealed world containing the essence of his empire, to be opened when the world was ready again. The rivers of Mercury, in this imagining, are more than decoration. They are protective moats, preserving the contents against whatever might destroy the surface. You think of other sites that share this feeling. The pyramids of Egypt, with their hidden chambers and shafts aligned to the stars. The megaliths of Turkey's Göbekli Tepe, buried intentionally for reasons still unknown. The ancient stone cities high in the Andes, built with blocks so precisely fitted that they have withstood centuries of earthquakes. Each place seems to speak the same language. Something was built to last. Something was built to be hidden. Something was built to be found only when the time was right. Even in Chinese folklore, there are hints of cycles, golden ages followed by dark ones, each giving way to the other in turn. There are stories of lost kingdoms swallowed by the sea, of mountains that once stood where plains now stretch, of stars that shifted in the sky when the old order fell. If these are memories of real events, however distorted by time, then perhaps the emperor's tomb is both a monument to the present and a message to the future. You picture the great burial hall again. In the center is the emperor still and crowned, but perhaps around him are not just treasures for the afterlife, but records maps of coastlines that no longer exist, tools whose purpose we have forgotten, carvings of machines or structures that would seem impossible to modern eyes. Imagine walking among them, feeling the weight of a history older than the one we know, a history buried to protect it from whatever storm or flood might come next. In this way, the mound becomes more than a grave. It becomes a time capsule from a vanished world. And if the legends are to be believed, it may not be the only one. There may be other sealed places scattered across the earth, each holding the memory of a different civilization, each waiting in silence. The hum beneath your feet seems stronger as you think this. Perhaps it is only the pull of your imagination, but it feels as though the mound approves of being placed in such company, as though it knows it is part of something larger, a network of silent witnesses across the world. But there is another side to this thought, one that chills you slightly. If these sealed places were made to survive catastrophe, then their very existence could be a warning. The builders might not have been preparing for if disaster came, but when? Perhaps they knew that the earth turns in cycles and that each age ends in its own way. If that is true, then the mound is not only a gift to the future, it is a sign that the past has seen endings before. The night wind stirs and you hear the rustle of grass against grass, a sound like the whispering of many voices. You imagine those voices speaking from across time, priests from Egypt, masons from Peru, astronomers from Sumer, engineers from forgotten coasts, each telling you their version of the same truth, that the world you know is only one layer atop many others. You begin to wonder if this is why the mound has been left untouched for so long. Perhaps those who guard it now sense, even without proof, that it is not simply the emperor's tomb, but something older, deeper, and more dangerous to disturb. Or perhaps they know that to open it is to open the memory of an ending we are not ready to face. The stars above seem brighter now, their cold light washing the mound in silver. Somewhere below, painted stars may still shine in their fixed constellations, a record of the sky as it was 2,000 years ago, or perhaps longer, if the stories of older civilizations are true. You stand between the two skies, one moving and alive, one still and silent, and feel the space between them as a doorway. You breathe slowly, letting the thought settle in you like a stone in still water. The ripples of it reach outward to other tombs, other ruins, other sealed places scattered like seeds across the world. The Emperor's mound is one among many, but it is the one before you tonight, the one whose silence you can feel in your bones. The hum is steady beneath your feet, the wind is steady in your ears, and the thought comes unbidden. Perhaps the greatest treasure the tomb holds is not gold or jade or even knowledge, but the reminder that the world has ended before and that it still endures. The night holds steady, but your thoughts turn toward the fragments we already have, the pieces that have been pulled from the earth around the mound, each one a small window into the world the Emperor left behind. And as you consider them, you begin to notice that some do not quite fit into the frame the historians have built. These are the anomalies, the out-of-place details that refuse to settle quietly into the official story. The most famous among them are the weapons of the terracotta army. Thousands have been recovered: swords, spearheads, arrowheads, and crossbow mechanisms, many of them still sharp, their bronze surfaces gleaming as though they were forged only decades ago. Analysis shows that these weapons were coated with a thin layer of chromium oxide, a treatment that prevents rust. The strange thing is, such anti-corrosion technology did not appear again in the historical record until the 20th century. Scholars debate whether this was an intentional process or the accidental result of other materials in the soil, but the precision of the coating suggests a deliberate method, one far ahead of its time. Then there is the scale of the engineering. The pits of the terracotta army, the underground corridors, and the structures beneath the mound imply architectural knowledge on a massive scale. The arrangement of the soldiers mirrors real battle formations. The pits are oriented with careful alignment, and the entire complex is laid out with the precision of a master planner. This precision extends beyond the soldiers. The mound itself seems aligned to certain points in the landscape, and possibly to the path of the sun at key times of year. If this was intentional, then the tomb is not just a burial site. It is a work of monumental geometry, a design that links earth and sky. Some anomalies are smaller, but no less intriguing. Among the bronze chariot fittings and the intricate bridle pieces for the clay horses, there are designs that resemble motifs found far from China in Central Asia, even in the Middle East. The official explanation is that these are the result of trade and cultural exchange along early routes that would later become the Silk Road. But others wonder whether the influences are older still, remnants of connections that existed before recorded history began. And then there are the materials. Soil analysis from the area has revealed traces of stones and minerals not native to this part of Shanxi province. Some of these could have been brought in for construction or decoration, but the effort required to transport them suggests they were chosen for a specific reason. Perhaps for their symbolic meaning, perhaps for properties we no longer understand. You think of the mercury again. High levels have been found in the soil far above what would occur naturally. While this supports the historical account of the rivers of mercury, it also raises practical questions. How could such vast quantities have been mined, transported, and poured into channels without modern equipment? And if they were poured, how were they kept from leaking or evaporating over centuries? The presence of mercury is both a confirmation of the legend and an opening for deeper mystery. There are also strange alignments. Some researchers using satellite imagery have noted that the mound appears to be placed in relation to other ancient sites in the region, forming patterns that may not be accidental. A few have even suggested that these patterns resemble constellations, as though the tomb complex were part of a larger terrestrial map of the heavens. If true, this would place it in the company of other ancient sites, worldwide Egyptian pyramids, Mayan temples that seem to mirror the stars above. And then there are the odd accounts from early excavation work stories, not often mentioned in official reports. Some workers claimed that certain parts of the site felt different, as if the air itself were heavier or charged. Others spoke of finding unusual shards of pottery or metal that did not match the known style of the Qin era. Most of these claims were set aside, attributed to misidentification or the distortions of memory, but they linger like shadows at the edge of the light. The more you think about these out-of-place details, the more the tomb begins to feel like a puzzle whose edges are scattered across the centuries. Each anomaly is a piece that might belong to the picture, or it might belong to another picture entirely, one that has been buried just as deeply. You imagine the sealed chamber again, this time focusing on the smallest objects inside. Perhaps there are tools or devices so ordinary to the people of the time that they left no record of their use, yet to us they would seem extraordinary. Or perhaps there are objects placed there without understanding, passed down from a much earlier age, kept because they were beautiful or powerful or simply mysterious. It is easy to see why such anomalies draw the attention of those who look for connections between ancient sites around the world. The chromium-treated weapons, the precise alignments, the foreign design motifs. These seem to hum in resonance with other places where history feels older than we're told. Whether these connections are real or imagined, they add another layer to the tomb story, one that is harder to dismiss. You glance back toward the mound in your mind's eye. In the starlight it looks unchanged, its curves smooth and patient. Yet you know that within its depths are details as sharp and strange as the gleam of an untouched blade. These are not the grand, visible treasures of gold and jade that fill museum displays. They are the quiet anomalies, the small signs that whisper, "There is more here than you think." The wind moves over the grass again, soft and steady, and you can almost hear it carrying these whispers across the centuries. Each one is a clue, a reminder, an invitation. Not enough to solve the puzzle, but enough to keep you wondering. And perhaps that is the purpose of the anomaly, is to draw the mind closer, to make you lean forward in curiosity, to keep the tomb alive in the imagination of every generation that comes to stand before it. Whether they are the result of advanced ancient knowledge, lost cultural connections, or simple coincidence, they have succeeded in that purpose. They have kept the mound from becoming just another hill in the landscape. You take a slow breath, feeling the hum beneath your feet once more. The anomalies do not explain the tomb, but they illuminate it in flashes, like lightning over a dark field, brief glimpses of something vast and intricate hidden in the night. The wind settles and the mound seems to sink back into its deep, steady breathing. But the whispers of those anomalies linger, and with them comes another thought, one you have felt before, though it moves like a shadow that avoids direct light. If the tomb holds objects, structures, or truths that do not fit the official account, then perhaps it is not only time and nature keeping it sealed. Perhaps there are hands, visible and invisible, that choose to keep it that way. In the official statements, the reason for the tomb's closure is framed as care, science, respect, and perhaps that is true. But behind the carefully chosen words, there may be other considerations, quiet, unspoken, and deliberate. You imagine the conversations that could take place behind closed doors, where the public is not invited. Long tables, dimly lit, men, women speaking in measured tones, weighing the risks of opening the mound not only to artifacts but to ideas. History is not just a record of what happened. It is also a story we agree to tell. It is ordered, curated, and when necessary, edited. What would happen if the tomb contained something that disrupts that story? A record of events that do not match the accepted timeline. A map of lands thought never to have existed. Objects that show a level of knowledge or contact with distant cultures far earlier than believed possible. If such things exist, they would not just alter the story of the first emperor, they could ripple outward, unsettling the histories of other dynasties, other civilizations. The shift might be subtle, or it might be like pulling a thread that unravels the whole cloth. Even the simpler anomalies could have political weight. If, for example, the tomb confirmed the presence of advanced technologies or foreign influence, it could challenge the narrative of the Qin dynasty as a purely indigenous achievement. For a figure like Qin Shi Huang, symbol of unity, strength and sovereignty, that challenge would not be taken lightly. You think of other places where discoveries have been made only to be locked away in vaults, their contents revealed in whispers or not at all. Some of these are tales more than facts, but they share a certain pattern. A find is made, it contradicts the accepted story, and then it vanishes from public view. In the case of the mound, there is also the risk of the tomb becoming a stage for power. Imagine the prestige and control that could come from being the first to unveil the emperor's resting place. Imagine the temptation to shape the interpretation of whatever is found, to use it as proof of a desired narrative rather than letting it speak for itself. If you open the tomb, you do not just find the past, you decide how the future will remember it. And then there is the possibility that the suppression is not only political but spiritual. In Chinese tradition, the spirits of the dead are to be respected, and certain places are not to be disturbed. Opening the tomb could be seen as an act of hubris, inviting misfortune not only on those who enter, but on the nation as a whole. Even those in power who do not believe in curses may still respect their symbolic force, and may not wish to be remembered as the ones who broke the seal. Perhaps too there is fear of what cannot be controlled. Mercury vapours, structural collapse, ancient mechanisms that might still function. These are tangible dangers, but there may also be fear of the intangible. What if the act of opening the tomb triggers unrest in ways no one can predict? Not by traps or toxins, but by the way it might stir the imagination of millions, or open debates about history that cannot be easily contained. You stand in the night and let these thoughts pass through you. The mound remains the same, quiet, patient, offering nothing. Its silence could be simple, or it could be deliberate. Either way, it is effective. For over 2,000 years, it has kept its secrets not only from looters and time, but from a world that might not be ready to hear them. There is an image in your mind now of the tomb as a locked chest, not buried, but sitting in the middle of a room where everyone can see it. People gather around, speculate about what is inside, argue about when or if it should be opened. And yet, the chest remains closed year after year, century after century, while the arguments shift and the world changes. The chest becomes more than its contents. It becomes a test of patience, of caution, of will. You wonder if those in authority see it this way, not as a sight to be hurriedly uncovered, but as a symbol of continuity, a reminder that some things remain untouched, even in an age of constant excavation and exposure. In this view, The mound's silence is not a failure to act. It is a decision, renewed with each passing year. But the thought lingers. If there are truths inside that do not fit the sanctioned story, then the silence is also a shield. A shield for the past, perhaps, but also for the present. And in that sense, the tomb's greatest power may be not in what it contains, but in the way it holds the world above it in suspense. The grass moves in the wind again, a soft rippling sound. You imagine the mound listening to all of this, the theories, the debates, the decisions, and holding its own counsel. It has survived wars, dynastic collapse, invasions, and revolutions. It will survive the arguments too. And so, the suppression, if that is what it is not absolute. The mound is still here, still visible, still inviting questions. It withholds, but it does not vanish. It allows us to stand before it, to feel its presence, to hear the hum beneath our feet, and know there is more to the story than we are told. You take a slow breath, and in the cool air you feel both the comfort and the frustration of this truth. The mound remains as it is, untouched. You walk away, but its silence follows you, not as absence, but as a weight, an unspoken promise that it will still be here when the time comes, if the time comes to open it at last. The mound rests behind you in the night, its silence still pressing against your thoughts. But as you walk, its image begins to dissolve into others, different shapes, different landscapes, yet all holding the same quiet power. It is not the only place where the earth hides a sealed chamber, where time has been allowed to sleep undisturbed. The first emperor's tomb is one chapter in a much larger book, a book whose pages are scattered across the world. In Egypt, the pyramids stand against the desert sky triangles of stone so massive they seem to defy time itself. The Great Pyramid of Khufu has been entered, yet many of its inner mysteries remain sealed. Hidden shafts, unexplored voids revealed by modern scan spaces that may have been untouched since the day they were closed. Like the mound in Shanxi, they are not simply tombs, but monuments designed to endure. Their alignments with the stars as deliberate as their massive stones. Far away in Peru, the ancient city of Machu Picchu lies high among the clouds, its stonework fitting so perfectly that even a blade of grass cannot slide between the blocks. There too are sealed chambers, places that the Inca left closed, their entrances masked by stone, their purpose unknown. Some believe they hold treasures, others say they hold only the bones of those meant never to be disturbed. Whatever lies inside, it has survived centuries of storms, earthquakes, and human curiosity. In Turkey, beneath the hills of Cappadocia, entire underground cities stretch for miles, tunnels and rooms carved deep into the rock. Some have been opened, their stone doors rolled aside after centuries. Others remain sealed, their passages blocked, their stories still hidden. Were they built for defense, for survival during catastrophe, for rituals we no longer understand? And then there is Göbekli Tepe, also in Turkey, its carved stone pillars, older than Stonehenge, older than the pyramids. Archaeologists believe it was intentionally buried around 8000 BCE. Why? To protect it? To hide it? Or to mark the end of something the builders did not want to pass into the next age? Its burial was not the work of nature, but of human hands, just as the sealing of the emperor's tomb was. Each of these places, scattered across continents and ages, carries echoes of the others. Massive effort, precise construction, deliberate concealment. They are not ruins in the ordinary sense. They were built to last, and in many cases they were built to be hidden. you begin to wonder if there is an instinct deep in the human story to create such sealed spaces. Perhaps it comes from the desire to preserve treasures, bodies, knowledge, or perhaps it comes from the desire to control deciding when and by whom the past will be revealed. The Qin tomb shares this language of secrecy. Like the pyramids, it has a clear symbolic purpose: to honor and protect the ruler in the afterlife. Like Machu Picchu, it was built in a location chosen for its natural power, surrounded by landscapes that hold their own mysteries. Like Göbekli Tepe, it may contain layers of history, some older than the builder himself. And across all these sites there is a shared tension between opening and preserving. In Egypt, new scanning techniques have found hidden chambers, but many Egyptologists argue they should remain sealed until methods improve. In Peru, there are tombs still left untouched out of respect for indigenous traditions. In Cappadocia, some block tunnels are left alone because opening them might damage the delicate rock. It is the same conversation repeated across cultures. Should we protect the silence or break it in search of answers? Perhaps the most striking connection is the way each site has inspired its own web of myths. The Great Pyramid has its tales of hidden knowledge maps of the stars, prophecies of the end of the world. Machu Picchu is said by some to be a gateway to another realm. Göbekli Tepe is wrapped in theories about lost civilizations and forgotten gods. And here, in Shanxi, the mound is the Star Palace, the sleeping dragon, the prison for a shadow. The legends shift and change, but the impulse is the same: to fill the silence with stories. You imagine these sealed sites as points on a vast invisible map. Lines connect them, not by trade routes or migrations, but by something less tangible: a shared human impulse to build, to hide, to guard. Perhaps they are independent inventions of different cultures, or perhaps, as some like to imagine, they are fragments of a tradition far older than any known civilization, a tradition that crossed oceans and mountains before written history began. Standing here, you can almost feel that network. The mound beneath the Chinese stars, the pyramid under the Egyptian sun, the city in the Peruvian clouds, the buried temple in the Anatolian hills, all holding their own version of the same secret. Each one speaks in a different voice, but the message is similar. We were here. We knew something. We left it for you, but not yet. The wind lifts slightly, and the grass on the mound ripples like a dark sea. You think of the desert wind moving over sand, the mountain breeze over stone terraces, the cold air flowing through hidden tunnels. Different climates, different landscapes, yet the same feeling that the earth itself has agreed to hold these places in trust. There is comfort in that thought. It suggests that these sealed spaces are not just accidents of history, but part of a larger pattern, a rhythm that moves through time. Civilizations rise, they build their monuments, they hide what they wish to protect, and then they fall. The earth keeps its secrets until the next cycle begins. And so the first emperor's mound does not stand alone. It is one voice in a choir of silences, one locked door among many. Whether it is open tomorrow, in 100 years, or never, it belongs to a lineage of places that remind us how much of the past is still sleeping beneath our feet. The stars above seem brighter as you think this, as if the night approves of your seeing the connections. Somewhere far across the world, other sealed chambers are lying in their own darkness, their own patience. Perhaps in some way we cannot measure, they are aware of each other, bound not by stone or soil, but by the intention that made them. You take one last look at the mound, imagining the invisible lines that stretch from it to those other places. You feel the pull of all of them at once, a weight that is not heavy but steady, like the anchor of history. And as you turn away, you know the story is far from over. The next part will not take you farther into the world, but deeper into the human mind, to the reasons we're drawn to what is forbidden, to the lure of what is sealed. The night seems to lean in around you, the air closer, the silence thicker. You have travelled far in your thoughts across continents, across centuries, following the lines that connect the first emperor's mound to other sealed places in the world. But now your attention narrows again, returning to the feeling in your chest when you stand before the hill in Qin Shi. It is not only curiosity, it is not only awe, it is something deeper and harder to name a pull, a subtle but insistent draw toward what is hidden. It begins with a truth as old as humanity itself. We are drawn to what we cannot have. The sealed door, the locked box, the shadowed path. It is in our nature to want to see what lies beyond. The Emperor's tomb is not just an archaeological site. It is the perfect embodiment of the forbidden. You can stand within sight of it, feel the grass beneath your feet, breathe the same air that drifts over its slopes, but you cannot cross into it. The closer you are, the more powerful the distance becomes. Part of this pull is the simple allure of mystery. The mind does not like unanswered questions. It circles them like a hawk over still water, searching for the faintest ripple that might betray what lies below. The mound offers the perfect riddle. It tells you just enough to make you ache for the rest. You know there are chambers, you know there are artifacts, you know there are legends of rivers and stars, and yet the reality remains sealed. But the fascination is not only intellectual, there is something emotional, almost primal in it. To approach the mound is to stand at the edge of time. 2,000 years is a span too vast to truly imagine. The people who sealed that chamber, the soldiers who stood guard, the emperor himself, they are as far from you as the deep ocean is from the surface. And yet you are here, your shadow falling on the same ground they once walked. The barrier between you is not only soil and stone, it is the unbroken thread of years, and to breach it feels like touching something sacred. We are creatures of thresholds. We are drawn to gates, to boundaries, to edges. We want to see the place where one thing becomes another day to night, land to sea, known to unknown. The Emperor's tomb is the ultimate threshold, the line between the living and the dead, between the present and a past that has been kept whole and untouched. Standing before it, you feel the gravity of that threshold, the way it pulls at you while also holding you back. There is also a more subtle reason for the pull. The tomb allows us to imagine, without limit. So long as it remains closed, it can hold anything your mind can conceive. You can picture rivers of silver mercury, walls painted with constellations never seen by modern eyes, treasures that glitter with the light of a vanished world. You can picture records of civilizations lost, maps of coastlines that no longer exist, even objects whose purpose defies all current understanding. The moment the tomb is opened, imagination will have to surrender to reality. And reality, no matter how wondrous, has boundaries. Perhaps this is why the pull is so powerful, because the tomb is both a promise and a mirror. It promises that there is more to the world than we have yet seen, and it mirrors our own desire to hold something of ourselves back from the gaze of others. Just as we keep certain thoughts, memories and dreams hidden deep within, so too does the earth keep the Emperor's secrets. You think of other times you have felt this kind of pull, standing before a locked gate in an abandoned garden, or seeing a path in the forest that disappears into shadow, or holding an old box in your hands without opening it. In each case, the unknown is alive in your mind, larger and richer than it could ever be if you stepped through, walked down, or looked inside. The Emperor's Mound is that feeling made vast and permanent. The forbidden also carries a thrill, the idea of stepping where you're not allowed, of seeing what you're not meant to see. It awakens the part of us that is restless, that hungers for the moment when a rule is broken and the world reveals more than it was supposed to. Even if you never act on it, the thought alone has a kind of power, and yet there is a countercurrent to this desire, a quiet, almost reluctant gratitude that the tomb is still sealed, because mystery is fragile. Once it is gone, it cannot be rebuilt. The Emperor's resting place is one of the last great unopened chambers of the ancient world. In an age where so much is catalogued, photographed, scanned and digitized, here is something that resists, something that holds itself apart. You realize that the pull you feel is not just toward opening the tomb, it is also toward preserving it exactly as it is. You want to know, but you also want it never to change. This paradox is part of what makes the mound so magnetic. It embodies two opposing desires at once. The breeze moves across the grass again, cool against your skin. You imagine the Emperor himself standing where you are now, long before the mound was complete. Perhaps he felt his own pull, not toward what was hidden, but toward the hiding itself. To seal away his treasures, his legacy, his very body, knowing they would rest beyond the reach of anyone who came after. Perhaps he too understood the strange power of the forbidden. The hum beneath your feet feels stronger now, or perhaps you are only more attuned to it. You close your eyes and let it settle into you, as if the ground itself is sharing a heartbeat with you. You think of all the people who have felt this same pull, farmers, travellers, soldiers, scholars, dreamers, each drawn here by the same magnetic stillness, each leaving with the same unanswered questions. When you open your eyes again, the mound is still there, unchanged. Its slopes are dark against the night sky, its surface smooth, its silence perfect. The pull does not lessen. If anything, it grows. Because you know that you could leave now, turn your back and never return. And still, a part of you would be here, standing in the grass, listening for the moment when the seal is broken. The pull of the mound remains with you, like a thread tied to your chest. But as you stand there in the deep night, your thoughts shift forward, from the stillness of now to the moment that might one day come. A time when the grass on these slopes will tremble, not with the wind, but with footsteps. When the seal that has held for over 2,000 years will finally be broken, and the question rises, how will we do it? In the past, the opening of ancient tombs was often a matter of force chisels on stone, torches in the dark, hands eager to pry treasures from their resting place. But the scholars here have promised it will be different. If the first emperor's tomb is opened, it will not be rushed. It will not be taken apart in haste. It will be done with the slow, deliberate care of someone untying a knot that took centuries to form. Already the tools to do this are taking shape. Ground-penetrating radar has mapped voids beneath the mound, showing where the chambers may lie. Magnetometry has hinted at the presence of metals, perhaps weapons, perhaps ornaments. Thermal imaging reveals areas that hold different temperatures, suggesting hidden spaces or changes in material. Each of these technologies allows us to see without touching, to approach without crossing the threshold. But there is more still to come. Scientists speak of developing micro-robots, tiny machines that could enter the tomb through holes no wider than a straw, carrying cameras and sensors to record what lies within without disturbing it. There are preservation chambers designed to enclose entire rooms in a sealed environment, allowing the air inside to be replaced gradually with safe, inert gases so that fragile artifacts can survive the transition from their ancient world to ours. You picture it now, a narrow probe slipping through the soil and into darkness. At first, nothing but shadow. Then, slowly, the beam of a tiny light revealing painted walls still vivid after centuries. The camera turns, and there, across a silver ribbon of mercury, stands the coffin of the emperor, its surface carved with dragons and clouds, its edges bound in gold. The moment the first image of the inside appears on a screen will be like the moment sunlight first touches a sealed room. Around the world, millions will watch. Some will weep. Some will feel the old pull lessen, replaced by the strange quiet that follows the answering of a long-held question. But others will feel a new pull and need to see more, to walk inside, to touch what has been untouchable. If it is done well, the opening will be slow. Each artifact will be studied and the place it has rested for millennia before it is moved, if it is moved at all. Preservation teams will work in shifts, their gloves and tools designed to handle objects that could crumble at a breath. The mercury rivers will be approached with extreme caution, their channels mapped and their surfaces studied to understand how they have survived. But if it is done poorly, the thought is hard to hold. Paint flaking into dust, wooden structures collapsing at the sudden change in humidity, the air becoming unbreathable, forcing the team to retreat before their work is done. And the worst loss of all, the possibility that the very act of opening the tomb could destroy some part of the story it was meant to tell. This is why the mound remains sealed for now. We have learned from the mistakes made elsewhere. The painted warriors of the terracotta army lost their colours almost immediately after exposure. Scrolls from other ancient sites have crumbled before they could be read. Fragile fabrics have turned to powder. The tomb's preservation is not just about protecting the objects inside, it is about protecting their meaning, the context that gives them life. And yet you cannot help but think about the first person who will stand in the Emperor's chamber. Perhaps it will be decades from now. Perhaps you will not live to see it. But someone will descend into that darkness, their light falling on things that have not been seen by human eyes since the day the gates were sealed. Will they find the painted dome, its stars still bright? Will they see the mercury rivers, their surfaces glimmering like liquid mirrors? Will they find treasures as the historian Sima Xian described, or will they find something entirely unexpected, something that changes everything we thought we knew? There are scientists who quietly admit they hope the tomb will remain sealed for another 100 years. Not out of fear, but out of hope that future technology will allow us to open it perfectly, preserving every colour, every texture, every breath of its ancient air. They speak of scanning entire rooms in 3 dimensions, of recreating the tomb virtually so that it can be explored without ever disturbing the original. And there are others who believe that technology is already good enough, that we should act before nature claims what time has so far spared. Earthquakes, floods, and the slow but inevitable seep of water through soil could damage the tomb even without human interference. To wait too long, they argue, is to risk losing it entirely. The debate will continue, the mound will listen, and somewhere deep below the emperor will continue his vigil, surrounded by whatever truths he chose to take with him into the dark. You stand there, thinking about that moment when the seal is broken. It will not be just an archaeological event. It will be a moment that belongs to the whole world. The images will travel faster than the wind, faster than thought, crossing oceans and mountains to reach every place where people have ever wondered about the past. And in living rooms, classrooms, and quiet bedrooms, people will feel what you feel now. The mingling of awe, longing, and a strange, quiet sadness that the mystery is ending. For now, though, the mystery remains. The mound sleeps, the grass sways, and the stars turn above. You breathe in the night air, knowing that you're standing in the pause between centuries, the stillness before the first door opens. And as you exhale, you realize something. The opening of the tomb will not end the story. It will only turn the page. The mound stands quiet under the night sky, and you feel as though you have been walking through its story not for hours, but for years. You have stood in the shadow of its grass-covered slopes, followed the line of history backward into the age of its making, and imagined forward into the moment of its opening. Now, in the deep stillness, your thoughts stretch even further, not in distance, but in depth. The mound is no longer just a place. It is a mirror for the way we think about time, memory, and the things we choose to hide. Time moves differently here. In the world beyond the fields, days pass quickly, clocks ticking, calendars turning, seasons shifting without pause. But the tomb has its own rhythm. It does not measure time in hours or years, but in layers of earth, in the slow settling of soil, in the steady turning of the stars above. 2,000 years have passed, and for the tomb it is only a single breath drawn and held. Standing before it, you feel that stillness settle into you, like the pause between heartbeats. Memory, too, works differently here. For most of us, memories fade, slipping away into the blur of time, but the mound remembers perfectly. Beneath its surface lies a moment preserved as if it happened yesterday. The flicker of torchlight on lacquered walls, the last echoes of footsteps before the gates were sealed, the faint metallic scent of mercury in the air. The world above has changed 1,000 times, but the world below has stayed exactly as it was, waiting for someone to remember it again. You wonder what it means to guard something for so long. Was it the emperor's wish to be hidden until the end of time, or did he imagine that one day his tomb would be opened and his name spoken anew? Did he build it as a place to sleep forever, or as a message to the future, a letter sealed in an envelope of earth? The unknown is its own kind of presence here. We live in an age that prides itself on knowing, on uncovering, on explaining. The first emperor's tomb is one of the last great places that refuses to yield, and in that refusal it reminds us of something we often forget, that not everything must be known to be valuable. Mystery itself has weight, and the act of wondering can be as important as the answer. You think of all the stories you have carried through this journey, the scholars' careful explanations, the villagers' dragon tales, the theories of lost civilizations, the whispers of anomalies, the visions of rivers and stars. None of them can be confirmed, none can be disproven. They exist in the same space, like overlapping shadows on the grass, each one shaping the way you see the mound. Perhaps that is what the tomb truly holds. not just the remains of a ruler, but the power to keep many truths alive at once. In the quiet, you begin to feel the shape of a larger truth. The tomb is not only about the first emperor or about ancient China. It is about us, all of us, across time and place. Our need to leave something behind, our instinct to protect it, and our longing to be remembered. The mound is the emperor's answer to those instincts, built on a scale so vast it could not be ignored, yet hidden so completely it could not be easily claimed. It makes you think of your own life, the things you hold in silence, the memories you keep sealed because they are not ready to be shared. Every person, in some way, builds their own tomb, a place in the heart, where certain truths sleep until the right moment, if the moment ever comes. The stars above are bright tonight, scattered across the sky like the pearls said to be set in the tomb's ceiling. Somewhere below in the dark, the painted stars may still shine, unchanged, a frozen mirror of the heavens. And here you are, standing between the two skies, feeling the weight of time pressing gently from both above and below. You realize now that whether the tomb is opened in your lifetime does not matter. Its meaning is not tied to the moment of discovery, but to the centuries of waiting. The waiting itself has become part of the story, woven into the identity of the place. To rush it would be to strip it of the very quality that makes it more than just a chamber in the ground. In this way, the mound is both a monument and a teacher. It teaches patience not as a passive act, but as an active choice. It teaches humility not as weakness, but as respect for what we do not yet understand. And it teaches the value of silence in a world that too often shouts. You breathe in the cool air and close your eyes, listening to the hum beneath your feet. It is not loud, not urgent, but it is steady. Perhaps it is the earth itself, or perhaps it is your own pulse aligning with the rhythm of the place. Either way, it feels like an answer, not to the question of what lies inside, but to the question of why it matters. When you open your eyes, the mound is still there, as it was before, as it has always been. The grass shifts softly in the wind, the stars turn above, the silence remains unbroken, and in that silence you find a strange sense of peace. The unknown will wait, the truth will keep, and until the day comes, if it comes, you will carry the story forward, not as a solved puzzle, but as a living question. The air is cooler now, the kind of cool that comes before dawn, though the night still holds its dark embrace. The mound rises quietly before you, unchanged by all the thoughts, questions, and visions you have carried to it. Its slopes are dark against the horizon, the grass whispering with every small movement of wind. You stand there for a final time, feeling the stillness not only around you but inside you, as if the tomb has lent you a small piece of its own patience. You remember the journey you've taken tonight. You began at the edge of the mound, hearing the hum of its stones. You traced the history of its making, the labor of hundreds of thousands of hands, the sealing of its gates in the year 210 BCE. You walked with the farmers who found the first terracotta faces, with the scientists who scanned its hidden chambers, with the storytellers who spoke of dragons, shadows, and star palaces. You followed the scholars' careful reasoning, the dreamers' wilder theories, the anomalies that don't fit neatly into the official account. You stood before other sealed places across the world, felt the pull of the forbidden, imagined the first glimpse inside, and sat with the truth that some mysteries endure for their own sake. And now, here you are, back at the edge of the mound, with all those voices and visions layered together. The tomb has not answered your questions, but it has changed the way you hold them. They no longer feel like weights pressing for resolution. They feel like lanterns glowing quietly as they light the path of curiosity. The night wind carries the scent of earth and grass. Above, the stars are beginning to pale at their edges, as though the sky is considering letting in the first hint of dawn. You think of the painted stars below, still fixed in their eternal night, and how they will not change until the day the tomb is opened, if it is ever opened. There is something comforting in that symmetry. Two skies, one moving, one still, both existing together. You take a slow step close to the mound, your shoes sinking slightly into the damp soil. You rest your hand lightly on the ground as though greeting an old friend. Beneath your palm you feel the firmness of earth that has held its secret for over 2,000 years. Whether it holds treasures, knowledge, warnings, or simply the still body of an emperor surrounded by symbols of his power, it is a place that has been tended by time itself. For a moment you imagine what it would be like to come here years from now, to find the mound exactly as it is now, its surface unbroken, its silence intact. Would you still feel the same pull? Would you still hear the same hum? You think you would. Because what draws you here is not only the possibility of discovery, it is the experience of standing at the threshold of the unknown, of being reminded that there are still places in this world where time is allowed to keep its secrets. The Emperor's tomb is many things: a monument to ambition, a work of art, a feat of engineering, a vessel for legend. But perhaps, above all, it is a lesson that some things are not ours to claim yet, that some questions are worth holding unanswered, that silence can be as rich as song. The mound before you is dark, steady, and whole. You let your breathing match its rhythm, slow, unhurried, certain. The hum beneath your feet seems to fade, or perhaps it simply becomes part of you, as though the story you've walked tonight will remain with you long after you leave this place. You glance up once more at the stars. Somewhere below, the Emperor's painted sky still glimmers in the dark. You imagine him there, still crowned, still watching, still waiting. You imagine the sealed gates, the rivers of mercury, the treasures resting in shadow. And then you imagine turning away, as you do now, leaving them to their silence for another night. The path back feels lighter. The cool air brushes against your face. The grass bends gently under your steps. You know that even when you are far from here, the image of the mound will return to you in quiet moments, in dreams, in the spaces between thoughts. It will be a reminder that mystery still lives in the world, that the past is not entirely gone, and that some doors remain closed for reasons we may not yet understand. You pause once more before the mound fades from sight. You breathe in deeply, as if taking the place into yourself, and then let the breath go, as if offering your own presence back to it. And in that moment, you hear the final echo of the night story, not from the mound, but from within yourself. What else might lie hidden, waiting for us to remember? If you've walked this journey with me tonight and felt the quiet pull of the unknown, share this with someone who loves a good mystery. Leave a comment, tell me where you're listening from tonight, and what you imagine lies beneath the Emperor's mound. And if you want more nights like this, where we walk together through history's shadows, make sure to subscribe. We'll always be listening. And as always, may the silence guide you through the past.